Right, you ready? Why, hello.
Hey there.
So we are working on a project kind of as a family, although it's a 4th grade project, about the integumentary system.
The gooey part of your skin.
Yeah, I wasn't going to even mention what it was and just be like bonus points if you know what the integumentary system is.
That's the only way I can think about it.
Yeah.
Goomentary.
Well, there were lots of choices, but this project is kind of a school and home project, and part of that is creating a model of the body system.
Yeah.
And so we're looking through the list. There's, 7 or 8 different choices for what, body system to pick, but the model, it is very specific about what components need to be in a model. So initially Terrence is like, let's do the skeletal system. And I'm like, okay, slow down.
Well, you know
How
why?
do we make a skeleton?
You know why he wanted to do that?
Why?
Because it didn't mess with any of the bloody, weird, organy parts.
Maybe?
That's why. He told me that.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I think actually skin comes out pretty good then.
Yeah.
It's not too gooey or gross. I mean, we haven't looked at the diseases yet, but that's going to be later this afternoon. We have to have 2 potential diseases that affect that system.
Okay.
I mean, psoriasis, technically, that's not too bad.
Okay, there you go. That's good.
And skin cancer,
Acne.
I think is... Oh, acne. I don't know if I would
acne.
qualify that as a disease.
If you're 17, it's a disease.
It isn't, though. Psoriasis is an autoimmune disease. Acne is a hormonal effect. Oh, I didn't even think about hormones is a body system that interacts with skin, too. So there's 3. But yeah, we're learning about it. And then when you just think about modeling body systems, like the muscle system, the respiratory system, the circulatory system, the nervous system, those are all rather terrible to model, right? But if you are having to model the integumentary system, it seems like more doable. So I kind of wonder if half the class is going to come in with integumentary as their thing. And this was on the quote-unquote bonus list. So Terrence gets bonus points for doing this body system. And I'm like, score. It's an easier model. It's not a super disgusting system to research. There's actually really great kind of kid-level videos. Because the thing about doing the integumentary system is we have to do a lot of the research at home.
Right.
Because they're going to be going one by one through the basic body systems as part of their class.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be touching on the integumentary system. So when we signed off on the project and, doing this quote-unquote bonus system, it was you're going to have to do some work at home. So it's basically amounted to me and Terrence sitting down for half an hour every day and watching a couple of videos and then having him take notes on the functions, on the structures, and then soon to take notes on the connections and the potential diseases.
So just so I have this right, if he didn't do an extra system, then all the work is done in class?
All of the presentation work, but not the model.
Okay.
The model we would be on the hook for.
Thinking of, parents being like, what's the least amount of work for me? Being like, oh, skeletal system. I don't do anything. It's all in class. So
until they have to make a model, and then they're going to be curing it all over their kitchen tables.
Probably.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I immediately was like, okay, what are we on the hook for? Models. Models.
Are you thinking, is the model going to be like a cake?
Yes.
Bake a cake and have that as the layers?
That would be... Excuse me. Still have a little bit of a respiratory issue here.
That's not the system that he's reporting on.
No, it isn't. You may have made me. You're tempting my overachievement.
This is what I do.
Of making a cake that he can.
I think of things that you like.
Well, I was thinking clay.
Okay.
That we could easily get or Play-Doh.
Some Play-Doh. Yeah, Play-Doh color.
And it would just be
Play-Doh colors that aren't insane. I'm sure you can. It's like Legos.
I'm sure you can, but I don't even know if it matters if it's insane because it's just everything underneath the epidermis is not really something that we ordinarily see. So the epidermis needs to be some kind of a skin tone, and then everything else can just be whatever you want it to be.
Well, yeah, the dermis versus the epidermis. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been interesting. I've learned a lot.
Okay.
But yeah, we are on the hook for a family model, and I definitely steered him toward the easiest model to make. And its bonus is it's like one of the higher level body systems, which has also not been terribly hard to research. So the other two bonus systems, just to give you some perspective on like, so one of them was the hormone system, which I'm not sure, there's like a name for it.
The lymphatic system? Isn't that the
No,
hormone system?
that was, no, lymphatic system is like the immune system, and that was one of the other two. So it was lymphatic system, endocrine, I want to say. It's the endocrine system.
Maybe.
For the hormones, and then the integumentary system. And I mean, compared to the lymphatic or the endocrine systems, I feel like integumentary does not fit a bonus system. So I feel like I'm getting away with murder a little bit, like easier model. It's a rather straightforward, non-yucky body system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've pretty much gotten all of his research done in one weekend.
Yeah.
I'm helping him set up his template so he kind of knows like the blanks he needs to fill in.
Yeah.
And then we have the research notes that he just has to go over to his research notes and then start filling in blanks. So yeah, he's pretty well supported from home.
Wow. Okay. I'm glad you're working with him on that, because bodily systems is not my forte.
It isn't mine either.
Yeah, but you're smarter at this stuff, and you took biology in school.
No, well, yes, but I did not like it. It's not my favorite system. Speaking of system, that would be the digestive system calling for snack time.
Yes, you may have a snack.
Yes, now close the door.
Close the door.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
No, you may not have cereal as a snack. You pick from the snack drawer.
Close the door.
It's okay. It's life.
Well, yeah, so that's kind of the status update. I did call you on Friday. Or no, it was Thursday, because we basically had to sign a note and make the decision Thursday night to be turned in on Friday on which system we were going to work with.
Yes.
And I called you because you were going to be at a conference, which is going to come up later. But yeah, again, the digestive system is calling from our nigh on 5-year-old. Sorry about that. That's
okay.
why we're not professionals.
That's why it's permanently documented at this age.
It is. This is a Slice of Life podcast. Yes. So I did call you.
Is that a thing? Slice of Life podcast? It sounds like a genre.
If it isn't, then it ought to be. Cool. I'm not certain.
Maybe we just made a new genre.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we did invent a genre. But anyway, I called you to make sure I wasn't going too extreme with this idea. And you said, no, I think it makes sense.
It makes sense.
And now does it make even more sense now that I've like further explained?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm curious to see if it will become Play-Doh or clay or a baked cake with icings.
I'm going to be very tempted.
I know. We'll see.
We have to incorporate a nail and a hair follicle. That's on the list of structures that our model will need.
Could be done.
It could be done. I mean, there's fondant. That's basically edible clay. On Kit.
I'm Dale.
Welcome to Catholic Hitch. We are a Catholic family seeking heaven and hoping to pick up others along the way.
Small talk? A little bit more, at least.
Small talk is when we kind of recap what's going on in our lives for anyone who's new to the podcast. And we have a big talk segment that covers like how our life is intersecting with the big, heady themes of our faith.
Yeah. So you're going to talk about swim lessons.
Oof, I'm talking a lot. But yeah, I thought, something that we've been doing for the last month, and, as any parent has done for many, many years, it's trying to make sure, like the mission for at least me, maybe for you, is that if our children fall in water, they won't die.
Yeah,
and they can go to a swim party.
That's the primary mission. Yeah.
Like, I think some families want, like, their mission with swim lessons is for their children to acquire a skill that will be like a lifelong love of swimming as, a form of exercise. There's families that we know who do it to instill, like, a healthy competitiveness with their children. So they're, like, into swimming for competition. But I think our mission is to make sure our kids can go to parties that are in the pool and not have to wear a life vest, and then certainly won't die when they fall in the pool.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to join a swim team at some point because they're so in love with organized swimming, then great.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed.
Yeah, but
it's not something that's like on
my
mission.
The end goal of our family isn't that they all get to where they're trying out for state times with their strokes. That's not what we're going for here.
Yeah.
No. Maybe if Johnny ends up with asthma, or this new wee one ends up with asthma, maybe then, because
it's a good sport for asthma.
Yeah, it really helps get through that.
Well, you were a swimmer.
I was, yeah.
Competitively.
Yeah, and the whole reason I was is because I had asthma, and it allowed me to continually work my lungs. So by the time I got to high school, they were like, "You have asthma?" "Yeah, I do." Like, "You don't have any symptoms of asthma." Normally, people do exercise and then they're wheezing and huffing and puffing, but I built my lungs up so much by doing swim lessons and swim team that I really didn't have any issues. It was just on occasion when I would get a cold or something like that, it could go into bronchial asthma for me.
Oh, nice. Well, it's good to be aware that that's a helpful, I guess, way to address asthma if that ever actually crops up. Yeah. I did not know that.
Yep.
Like, you can specifically use that to treat asthma.
Yep. That's why when I swim, I'm the weird one that bobs and goes down and just continues to blow bubbles, and then I come back up because I enjoy it. But it's also a great exercise for your lungs because it's physically making your lungs have to push out the air, and you have to breathe deep back in and push it out. So you're getting really good lung exercise in that. And
interesting.
Flexing all the little pockets where the oxygen stays. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thinking about swim lessons, we have 4 children, and I have to say our swim lessons journey varied rather substantially between child number 1 and child number 4. Yeah. I'm sure you would agree.
Yeah, child number 1 was, let us take this baby who can not even stand yet and bring them to the pool and play with them in a swim lesson class.
Oh, yeah, it was a mommy and me swim lessons.
Yeah. To now, it was, don't let your brother drown.
Well,
and then he got into swim lessons after.
Yeah.
He wasn't like the rest of them where they didn't even want to stick their face in the water. He got to the point he was just so roughhoused by being in the water with the little floaties on that he was used to having water, and then he wanted to get the water on his face because it was fun.
And he does that now. He'll put his face underwater, which we've never had a kid at his age do. Well, with Christina, we did endless swim lessons all year long with the twice a week, half hour waiting with the 5 to 7 children. Sitting on the wall, waiting for their turn to practice this or that stroke. We did that for years with her. Yeah. And then eventually, the way that she ended up learning to swim is I put her in for an entire summer. I just bought the entire summer swim lessons, level 1. And so we were in the pool every single day. And that was the summer she went from level 1 to level 4. And she really learned how to swim. The next child blatantly told me he would not learn to swim. And I had been doing
where he would have gotten that kind of a temperament from at all.
Well, I can share my own. I remember very little from my childhood, but I do remember swim lessons. But when your child and we had been doing swim lessons with, number 2 and number 3 for maybe a year, and then your child who hasn't progressed at all. And it's a lot of work to get kids schlepping them to swim lessons, especially in the winter time. Yeah. It's just hard, and they're never at the same time. They never overlap perfectly. So you're there for an hour and a half, with 3 children. And when he tells you, I'm not going to learn to swim, that's when I'm okay, no more swim lessons. We're not going to do this anymore. And at some point, another, a mom of a larger family, we were talking about swim lesson woes, and she said, you know what we did? We just got them the floaters, and we just went to the pool every day, or, a lot during the summer. And then eventually they just kind of figured out the body mechanics they needed to actually move themselves in the water. And then slowly, once we put them in swim lessons, they just kind of took off. They pretty much knew how to swim except for strokes. And so I followed that advice, and that has been exactly what has been working out.
Right. It was a great catalyst.
Yes. So we spent the last 2 summers just getting a pool pass to our local community pool and just going there, 3 times a week usually for a couple hours at a go, and they just played. And mommy babysitted the little one, or else sat on the side of the pool because I can swim and stuff, it's fine, but, I'm not going to go and play in the pool at my age. Right. But the kids got to go and play, and they played quite a lot. And we just did 1 session of swim lessons, which was just 4 Saturdays in a row. And Rosalina and Terrence are both like really demonstrating that they have acquired like the ability to manipulate themselves and really just needed that honing of their stroke skills, and they've got that. So it wound up being really good advice. So I kind of wanted to share that. That was the advice we received from like a more seasoned mom, and it's really paid off for us. I have all these like little pieces of advice I've been given by other moms over the years of large families, and like I love it because it's like they're hacks for my life as a mom.
Nice.
But when I went through swim lessons as a young child, my mom was diligently taking me every day in the summer. We would go, and I do remember I was like quite big for my group. And in order to go from the group that I was in to the older kids group, like the more skilled group, you had to swim across the length of the pool on the baby side where you could stand up. And I remember like expressly being like, why should I do this when I can stand up? And so I never did it. And my mom ended up switching me to a different like community pool who didn't have my track record, and she just put me in with my age group, and suddenly I was in the deep end. So I learned to swim real fast that summer.
Yeah, I didn't want to go to the deep end. I remember when that happened. I was perfectly happy being in the 4-foot area, and then they brought us over and literally throw you in, and you got to start wading and doing your thing. So I wasn't too excited about that. But that's like everything in life, right? It's you just throw yourself in, eventually you swim.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big talk?
Big talk.
So I have been jam-packing my weekends, and still more to come of those. But this weekend, I had the opportunity with my boss to go to the Catholic Society of Liturgy, which basically was a conference, and their conference just so happened to be here in Denver this year. And the conference was on the liturgy and youth. And I wanted to share some of the things that I got out of this conference. First and foremost, I was able to shake the hands of Chris Craner. So
both of them?
Yeah, no, I only shook one. I guess I should be more
appropriate. You shook the hand.
I shook the hand of Chris Craner. He sat next to me while we were at one of the keynote speakings, and I looked over and I'm like, I wonder. I think that is. So I kind of take my phone, push it over to the side, Google the liturgy guys, and make sure that I'm correct before I make a complete idiot of myself. And then at the end, I introduced myself and found out that it was in fact him, and thanked him for all that they've done on the show, and how they bring to life the general instruction of the Roman Missal, which has been super helpful for me in my career. And he's super humble, really nice guy. So all I need is for Jesse to come to Denver, and I've got the trifecta. I've done it. So I'm just saying, if anybody knows
think
Jesse,
it's possible at this point.
It's possible. It could happen. So that was nice. That was like icing on the cake. The cake really was the Mass. So I got to go to Mass Thursday night, Friday morning, Saturday morning, and then I also got to experience Vespers on Friday evening. So this is at the St. John Miani Seminary here in Denver, where they have one of the most exquisite chapels that I've seen and ever been in. It was originally designed by Jock Benedict, who is a famous architect, especially here in Denver. There are over, I want to say 320, something like that, 275 to 320 different shapes, textures, and sizes of brick in this chapel. Not to mention the stone and everything else that's used. It's amazing. So that's a added bonus. Then on top of that, I had Cardinal Stafford, who gave the homily on Friday night, and then on Saturday morning, Archbishop Aquila gave the homily. Both,
who was better?
Well, they were both different. They were both very different.
That's a very safe answer.
So Cardinal Stafford, he really set the tone of the whole event. And what I got from him was thinking about how our journey here on earth is akin to a pilgrimage. So if we're sojourners, right? We're not meant of this world, but we are in the world. Is that saying it right? That if you've ever done a pilgrimage, you think that you're always leading up to a terminus. You're going to a place, and that place is set aside as sacred, and that's why you're going there. Well, basically, our whole lives is that pilgrimage that we are hoping to get to heaven, which is the holiest and most sacred of places. So that was kind of what I got from Cardinal Stafford, along with his encouragement for families and laity in general to pray the Liturgy of the Hours. He told us how when he started as a young seminarian, that he had to get up in the morning at 5, and it was really hard. And then I think it came to the weekend of like day 3, and they started saying the Liturgy of the Hours, and it was like 6 in the morning on a Sunday that they got up, and they prayed it, and they had beautiful music and chant that went with it. And he said after that, I was hooked. I knew this was my home, and it was where I was meant to be. And I can totally understand. The beauty of the Mass that was presented was completely, nobly simplistic. It wasn't like there were, it wasn't big and theatrical and all frills and all of these things. It was just reverently geared towards the sacrifice of the Mass, which made it just so amazingly beautiful. I mean, Friday night we everything was in, or the majority of things were in Latin. Then Thursday night, on Friday, it went back to English because Thursday was the feast of the archangels, and then Friday was the celebration for Saint Jerome, and then Saturday was the feast day for Saint Therese of Lisieux. So it was just like jam-packed. So I would say the whole conference, in essence, was that. It was the act of doing, and beautifully done by multiple priests, celebrating the cardinal, the archbishop. And in the archbishops, when he talks about it, apparently he started or was one of the founding members of this conference, which I didn't know.
Nice.
But he just talked about how important the domestic church is in our lives, and how Saint Therese of Lisieux is such a beautiful example of that in her little way, which we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And so as he's talking about just the beauty of Saint Therese and how much she gave her life to Christ at such a young age, he was like all tearing up and getting all like, couldn't talk very well. I'm like, this is so awesome. Our archbishop loves Jesus so much, he can barely get his homily out. How amazing is that?
Awesome.
So it was just like such an amazing thing. And on the conference side, there were a lot of big words that were said. A lot of them I didn't catch because I'm a little simple. But what I did get of it, and again, this coming out of the Mass, is just the importance of the Mass within our lives. The importance of liturgy being reverent, and the priest as vicar in persona Christi. Is he truly living it? Because when he's living it, we live it. It's just such an amazing thing. The beauty of chant. So we were using the older notes, so we would have like the two little square things on top of each other, or, it'd go, and like, but it's all in the same note tone or cadence. So that was something new. I really hadn't done a lot of that before. So really got a good exposure to that. And then just the balance of Latin and English. Even when we were done with Mass, everybody, like, you could tell just the reverence of everyone there. even though we had been dismissed, we all kind of stayed, took a second, prayed, and then left and got ready. So it was really wonderful. The pews that we sit in, I think are expressly designed for seminarians because they're really, really tight together. And the kneeler like weighs 100 pounds. It's just massive. And you put it down and you keep it down, because if you don't have it down, when a person kneels, they hit it behind them. So if someone wasn't behind me and I'm kneeling, my legs are like splayed so they knock it down. Because when it knocks down, it's like...
Oh, I get it, yeah.
And then you hear it through the entire chapel. So they just stayed down, which was kind of a weird thing. The other thing that kind of affected me, which is really to my profession, when we talk about building and renovating churches. Oh. No! What are we doing? Johnny! Oh, okay. All right. That was interesting. Children trying to keep Johnny from coming outside.
He's got a brother and a sister dragging him away from the sliding door.
Off. Go. Okay.
So the other thing pertaining to your work as an architect.
Yeah. That was comical. So to give an example, when I did architecture that was designed specifically towards hospitality, hotels, we had a friend that helped us to get a nicer hotel on one of our vacations. And I hadn't realized the importance of that kind of a nicer experience and what it does to your vacation. So in a similar term, thinking through our churches. If our churches are bare of liturgical signs and symbols, like a very modern church that has, like 3 pieces of glass on the wall and they call it the Holy Trinity. No one knows what that is. It's not understandable. It doesn't reveal itself to you. And in that, it made me realize how important it is when I'm helping to build or renovate a church that the art, the mosaics, the statues, all of the didactic pieces have to be there. Because if they're not there, God's going to use any space you give him that is for worship. Be it a big box church or a cathedral, he's going to use it. And he's God. He can do what he wants. But if we're to help, within my profession, a person to have that bridge to come closer and closer into encounter with Christ and transcendence in that moment, the mystical, then it has to be through beauty. And I kind of got that. I've been doing this for almost 5 years now, which is wild. But it really just was so impressed upon me how important that beauty is, so that you can engage. And I found something I've talked about before, but am just starting to get into, and after this conference, and I want to dig myself into deeper, is the idea of mystagogy. So mystagogy is that way of taking something that is invisible and making it visible. So think of like the baptismal font. So within the baptismal font is a sign of our coming into the church. It is a sign of dying to our old self and renew. It has biblical reasoning to it, but also the symbols of the water as a cleansing element. It's something that is sacred, that sets us apart on our journey of this pilgrimage. It does all of these things, and so it reveals itself in many different ways throughout your life, throughout your worship. And so that would be a mystagogical experience. The same way if you think of at the Mass, when we all sing Holy, 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 all the angels and saints are singing with us. We don't see them, but in the presence of the Eucharist, that can be made visible to us in the mystery. So that was like a big, huge, super cool thing. The other thing I think I mentioned was the importance of the domestic church. And some of the things that I wanted to say about this, when we were talking about the problems that we're having in our church, and when we looked over, they talked about the studies that have been done and statistics that have been done over the past, 20 years. When you think of like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and how parents of that time period, they were trying to give the inheritance of the Mass, of the Catholic faith, to their children, but their children were walking away, and we didn't know why. And one of the things that I thought about, that I think made a difference in many who did stay, was what's happening at home, the liturgy at home. So liturgy being, it's the practice thereof. And if there's a liturgy at home that happens, through prayer, through saying the liturgy of the hours, taking the time to do a rosary on the weekends.
Living the liturgical year.
Yeah, living the liturgical year, exactly. All of these little things start adding up. Because what's happened over all of these years, if we as parents aren't speaking into our children these cultural elements, then the secular world was speaking in their religious moments, their ideals, and then they were converted to that rather than brought into the church.
Can I use an example from my own family?
Absolutely.
And this is something that I share when I do my talk on the restored order, because the restored order, or I guess the movement of moving First Communion to a younger age, that was predicated upon the domestic church, knowing that, children were going to be receiving reconciliation and First Communion so early. Therefore, the parents had to have a larger responsibility to make sure that child continued to grow in their faith. So my mom is one of 7 children. She's the only child that practices her faith. The rest, I think one might be Christian, kind of air quotes, and the rest are atheist agnostics.
Yeah.
And my mom's family was raised Catholic. And, when we had our daughter, we're practicing our faith, I was really disturbed by the attrition rate. So one of 7 children, that's 14% of the children of that household maintained her faith. And the rest fell away. And it kind of makes you, as you're having children, feel hopeless about your child actually bringing their faith into their adulthood. And I was a little despairing about, what was going to happen to our children as they became adults and had to make their own decision. Until my mom kind of offhandedly mentioned to me their Sunday practice as a family, their Sunday habit was they would all pile into the car, they would drive over to the church, they would open the doors to the church, and my mom would take herself and her 6 siblings into church while my grandma and grandpa went and got their routine Sunday morning breakfast date in.
Yeah, brunch.
So they did not see grandma and grandpa, which is their own parents, going to Mass with the family.
So you can imagine if that's the case, if that is the level of Christ in the domestic church, you're not going to last.
Yeah.
Why? If Dad doesn't do it and he doesn't go to church, why am I going to go to church?
Yes,
that's always a huge one.
You're seeing you're being forced to do this thing that your parents don't even go to do, and you think, okay, well, obviously this doesn't actually matter, and they were only doing it for cultural reasons because it was expected of their culture to have their kids in church, yada yada.
Right.
And it made me feel a lot better about the possibility of us raising strong Catholic children, because it's we're not doing that for sure. And I just wanted to use that as an example of the lack thereof of a domestic church, that, without that strong foundation, things really do go awry.
Yeah.
And it's hard for churches to take responsibility for the domestic church in some respects. But here, you can keep going.
Yeah, I think that's true. No, I think that's true because, on the pastoral side, they only have a touch point when you come to them. And so if you're only coming on Sundays, it's very difficult for any other ways of the church entering your life, and especially, as I think many of us know, kids realize that if it's a chore for the parents to do it, if they keep pushing, parents will stop doing it. So they will resist going to church if they think that if we just keep doing that, then we won't have to go and I can play video games and watch TV all day. Cool, I'm going to do that. I'm guilty as charged with that. So in that respect, it has to be other ways of entrance into your life. And I think one of the main things to think about is, where are you with your own faith journey? Are you at a point you think that you can even speak into that in your life? If it is, you're in a case where it's only Sunday is the only day I've got to go and I have time for that. Speaking as a guy, I would think about, is God on my calendar? Is he scheduled? Because if he's not scheduled, it ain't going to happen, right? Because most of us, we all live by all this stuff we've got to do. Even if it's, okay, it's time to take the kids to the soccer game or the baseball game. Great. Make that time your time to walk out in the backfield and pray the rosary. And it's not like you're out in front saying, oh, look at me, I'm all pious. But hey, you've got a half hour, an hour while the kids are doing their thing that you don't have to necessarily be sitting there and watching them. So go pray the rosary, or go spend 5 minutes of that time and read a gospel passage. Let God speak to you through his word, or something like that, and then it'll start to change, at least I think from the men's side of things. And then always if you can have a group in your church that you can go to and say, hey, how do I do this stuff? What do I do? How does this work? I think there's ways to do that. And then the last thing I was going to mention that came out of it that was a big kind of aha to me was thinking of Mary and the saints as bridges to God. So devotion to Mary and to our saints allows us to have them help us get closer to God. Mary is our great intercessor. One, geeking architecturally, one thing that was pointed out, which I hadn't realized before, when you look at a lot of the images of Mary and child, Mary and Jesus, how is she holding Jesus? He's typically on her lap, or she's holding him up in her hands underneath. Out. He is out. She is presenting her son. She's saying, this is my son. Meet him. I want you to know him and love him and serve him. So she becomes the throne for God to be to us. So if she can do that, then, why not use that shortcut and use her, have her come into your heart and help you to find God, especially if it's hard. Think of Mother Teresa and the difficulty that she had in trying to find that moment of consolation and prayer and devotion. It was hard for her, and I think especially in our modern times, it's very difficult for us to kind of have that mystagogical experience of seeing the invisible. Even if we try to pretend, right? And just imagine. It's hard for us because TV and video games and all these other things have been put in our face so much that we use those to input. We don't necessarily use our imaginations. We always have to have something there. So use Mary as that something there, and she will help you to get to her son. I think those are the biggest parts of it. There are other things. It was a really great conference. From what I heard, it's going to be in St. Paul, Minnesota, hopefully next year. I don't think I'll be going to that one, but just if anybody's interested in this society for Catholic Liturgy, there you can check it out. I'm sure you can go to their website. I did pick up a couple of books, but I left them inside, and I can't remember all of their names, but I did get one from Chris Carstens, and I got one from Father Daniel Cardo, and
you can
Professor Margaret Mooney.
Okay.
So
sounds like you're remembering most of them.
Well, I remember their names, but I don't remember the names of the books.
Okay.
So
you can maybe share them next week.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you had the opportunity and you went. It was really nice. You came back just like ready to talk and like share and just kind of overflowing with everything that you had been filled with, which is great.
Yeah, I had to start writing it down or it was all going to fall out of my brain.
It was good. I was like, could we make like several podcasts out of this? And you were like, no, we're just going to do the one.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit longer than normal. We've been pretty short lately.
Yeah.
So
we got the time.
Yes. Oh, I wanted to ask for prayers for my best friend's mother who's missing. She isn't like entirely in her right mind due to like a long story, but if you can say a prayer for Kathleen to please be found.
Yeah.
She went missing in Texas. Please pray for Kathleen and for her family who misses her and is really, really scared for her.
Yeah, indeed. CatholicHitch@gmail.com, and may the Lord guide and direct our journey.
Amen. Man, that jingly jangly collar.